what I mostly can remember from that night is waking up in a hospital bed and tube in my throat, can't breathe. A little nurse is holding my head, telling me it's going to be okay. Uh, Desperately fighting for air, uh, and then everything goes black. Uh, that was right around 4 years ago. Yesterday is when that happened to me. I grew up in a place that appeared on the outside to be pretty normal, and great parents and great grandparents and what appeared to be normal. But at home, I ran around as a lonely, scared, sad kid. Um, my mom had battled drug addiction and alcoholism for some time, and there just was not much emotional sustenance there. Um, and I didn't know this at the time, so it was hard for me. So internally, I took that and said, "This got to be something wrong with me. Why would she not want to be part of that?" And again, I didn't know it at the time, but as I got older, I realized that there were things, fantasy, where I could go in my mind where reality didn't have to be what it was. And eating was probably my second favorite way to escape. And by the time I was 11 or 12, my mom passed away. Um, and it was labeled as she accidentally took too much medicine, but the truth is it was an overdose. And I didn't connect those dots until later in my life either. And I didn't have the tools to grieve that. I didn't, so I carried this pain. I didn't even know I had this pain that I carried into kind of my high school career. By the time I got to be 15 was the first time I ever tried alcohol. And when I did, I knew this is it. Like, that is what made me feel whole. Uh, I loved the camaraderie around it. I loved the way it made me feel. I didn't feel anxious. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel lonely anymore. And it helped me escape. And then a few years later, I tried drugs for the first time. Prescription painkillers, and I thought, man, if alcohol did the job, this was just two steps better. And during this time, I'd also found lust as an excellent way to escape. So I learned from a very early age the only way I was going to survive in this world uh, was to escape and not be me and not deal with the way life actually was. I'd gone to church as a child. I'd gone to youth groups, and I'd gone to summer camp. And I think looking back, I can honestly say that I was a believer, but I had no faith, no working faith. Um, and it, that it stayed with me, but it was always on the fringes. God was always somebody uh, that was powerful, but just generally mildly cared about what was happening to me and human beings in general. Um, Between the ages of 16 and 20, uh, drinking and partying was fun. And I was the life of the party. I loved it. I got to be who I'd always dreamed in my fantasies who I would be. And the solution worked to a T. It did exactly what I wanted it to. By the time I got to be about 22, though, uh, it stopped working as well. I started encountering trouble with the law, getting arrested. Friends didn't want to be around me anymore. I couldn't tell the truth. I was a liar. I started stealing. And slowly but surely, the people around me started drifting away. And I can remember about 22 or 23 looking in the mirror one day and realizing I couldn't go a day without drugs. I couldn't make it. And I'd always heard the word addict and thought of those people, primarily probably somebody that lived under a bridge somewhere. And I had to deal with well, I don't know if I dealt with the reality, but at that point was the first time I realized this is an issue. This is a problem. And the next 3 years, the consequences just escalated, and my misery escalated. More and more, that solution of drugs and alcohol didn't work, and I became more and more miserable with life and myself. The activities I was doing, the crime went up, and so did the consequences that came with them. By the time I was 27 years old, I had 3 DUIs, had already overdosed once prior. Got to a place, I'd gone to a couple treatment centers, and every time I got out, I went right back. And in my mind, I believed I had tried God. I had tried God, I had tried Christianity, and it didn't work. And although I grew up with it, my resentment at church and Christianity was huge. And it wasn't until almost 4 years ago today, I was in a hospital from an overdose, and according to the doctors, I was supposed to die. And I remember waking up crying because of how lonely and sad and scared to death I was. And what I really wanted was to die. Like, I wanted God to let me not be in this world anymore. But there was also a part of my heart that night was just like, God, if there's another way, you have to show me, because I'm not going to make it. And I got to go to my third treatment center. And that was when I was introduced to 12-step recovery. And that was a rough journey. I started recovery with absolutely nothing. I had no car, no clothes. I was virtually still unemployable. I didn't have a license. And somebody very wise in my life, right before I was about to get out of treatment, told me something. And he said, Jake, people like you don't stand much of a chance because you don't have a whole lot to live for right now. It's like, so when you get out, you're going to have to do what they tell you to do in recovery. And you're also going to have to find a really big God. And I couldn't hear it at the time. Like, I knew that generally, but it wasn't until later, as I continued to go to meetings and go to the fellowship, where I realized that what was ultimately going to have to happen is what Jesus said, is that I was going to have to die to myself, that the cross that I was going to have to take up was the ego that I had created in all of those years of running. And it was about a year and a half in, after working in this program, where my God opened my heart back open to Him, because I'd been cold. I was clean, I was sober, but I was still miserable. And at a year and a half to 2 years, God opened my heart back up, and I firmly believe that I had a spiritual awakening as a result. And it was not easy. And the beautiful thing about God is that He let me have those moments of crying and being angry with Him, and just like a child teaching me how to walk and talk again. I'd always heard people in church talk about God loving them and that they knew that, and was such a foreign concept to me. Like, I couldn't grasp that because I didn't love myself. And it wasn't until men that God put in my life, a community developed around me, that I could start loving myself. Like, they loved me until I could start doing the same thing. And so my journey with God has been crooked, right? Like, the path has not been straight. But the truth is I know that God has been with me every single step. And when the video first started, I described the night that I overdosed. And that week was the absolute worst week in my entire life. And God decided in His love and mercy that it was not my time to die. And really, about a year ago was when I felt this year and a half ago, I felt that just a general concept of God was not going to work. And God, the Holy Spirit, I firmly believe, revealed to me that Jesus was, in fact, needed to be everything or nothing in my life. And the faith that I'd heard about growing up became so new and fresh, and I realized that Jesus was large enough, great enough, merciful enough, graceful enough to let me wander away. And just like the prodigal son came running down the hill when he saw me return. And this day's a special day for me. Today is 4 days, 4 years actually, and I have not found it necessary by the grace of God to use drugs or alcohol. And it's an absolute miracle because I was utterly hopeless, utterly helpless. I was lost. When Paul talks about we were dead in our trespasses, that always hits home for me because I literally physically was dead. And more than physically, I was spiritually dead, emotionally dead, and mentally dead. And God, through Jesus Christ, breathed new life into me. And by His grace and love today, I have a life that I could not possibly have dreamed of. If I could have sat down 4 years ago and said, this is what I want my life to look like, I would have come so short. I have some of the best friends I've ever had. I live in community and they know where I'm at. I know where they're at. We tell each other the truth about what we feel. We pray together. We talk to God together. I have a fiance that in 5 days will no longer be my fiance, and I'll be married. And it's scary, and that is the most beautiful thing. I never thought there was going to be a day where I could actually be in enough shape, like physically, financially, emotionally in shape, where I could even be like a suitable candidate for marriage. And that's happening in my life. I've started a business, decently successful in a career, and all of those things are not necessarily indicative of my walk with Christ. Those things primarily came about because of the change in the way I was living. But my communion with God today is entirely different. Like I have a relationship with Him. I can take Him, my sin and my struggles and my gratitude and all the parts of me, and I can take it to Him. And so I used to be so lonely when people, pastors or people in my life would talk about Jesus could save, and I would always be like, from what? And in this case, like, Jesus literally saved me from myself. And in some ways, that's still a battle and a struggle today, and probably will be for the rest of my life. But I can say that I'm truly grateful today just for what God's done. And the honest truth is if in my hopeless condition, if God's saving grace can reach that far, then there is no one that is beyond the hope of Jesus. There's no one that's beyond the love, and there's no one beyond His power. Because I was not supposed to make it according to everything in this world, but God saw differently, and that I'm truly grateful.